All right, we are live. Welcome once again to Watchers Talk Live. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning in. You guys know the spiel, right? How's everybody doing out there in the world today? I'm coming to you live, Orion Rising Live on Facebook. Let me adjust my camera here a little bit. I realize my camera's sticking up just a little higher than I wanted it to. That's a little bit better. Rather cut off my head and show you the beard than cut off my beard and show you my head. All right. So today we're coming to you live once again. This is going to be a good show. We have Daniel back on here, DanielofDoriaa, Daniel Dunn. We have him back on here. And I don't know if you guys saw those other shows. We had him on. It was fabulous. Blew my mind, blew everybody's mind. Daniel has written a couple of books. You can see them right now on the page. He's written 3 books. And we're going to talk about those books, and we're going to talk about everything that's going on. And we will have a chat. So if you guys want to talk in the chat, you can talk in the chat and ask questions, and I'll try to field those to Daniel if I can get my computer working here in the chat. Then you guys will be ready to go. So welcome, everybody, and we're going to do some shout-outs. I see Dino from Paranormal Into the Night. Dino's already there. Hey, Dino, how we doing, buddy? He just said hey in the chat over there. So shout-out to him. If you guys don't know who he is, catch his show. He's got a really good show he does on Fridays and Saturdays, man. There are a couple of good shows that he does. He's got a lot of good stuff, a lot of good people on. He does a lot of stuff like we do with all the paranormal weird stuff. So you guys need to go check him out, right? As normal, shout-outs to Portal to Ascension. Those guys, I work with those guys, and I help those guys whenever I can, promote those guys whenever I can. Go to portaltoascension.org, and you can see that they're doing a lot of webinars. They're doing a lot of tours around the world. They have some really good speakers that come on and talk about some really, really, really good stuff. Most of the stuff that we talk about on here on Orion Rising. So you should check those guys out. They just went on a tour with Michael Tellinger. You guys just missed them. They just finished their tour up about 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago with Michael Tellinger. They toured the whole North American continent and talking about Ubuntu Planet. So speaking of that, ubuntuplanet.org, go and take a look at what that's about, Michael Tellinger and what that's about. Shout out to him as well. A shout out to Bruce Cunningham. Bruce Cunningham is going to be on the show tomorrow. Tomorrow our time, it'll be Monday his time because he's in the Philippines. We're going to be talking about his magazine and the stuff going on there in Angkor Wat. We're going to be talking about the tours that they're going to be setting up that we're working on that I'm helping him promote for 2018. So you guys want to take a look at that. Shout out to Ildi. Ildi is working with Mimo Basha for MimoTours.com. Take a look at that. They have these really, really good tour packages over in Egypt that they're putting together later this year, I believe, and next year. It's a 15-day cruise, 14 or 15-day cruise. You go up and down the Nile. You go back and forth from Luxor to the Giza Plateau. I think they take you down the Nile, and then you fly back up. And you'd have to look at other stuff that's going on. It's just incredibly insane, and it's cheap. It's not that expensive. You should take a look. Also, if you didn't catch the show last night, we had Georgios Zouklos on here. Take a look at the video that we had going on over there. You really got to take a look at the video because there is a tour that they're putting together for September 3rd through the 10th to be sailing on this yacht, and there's limited seating, or I should say limited tickets, because they're not selling like 1,000 tickets or 100 tickets or something like that, because they're keeping it small and quaint, and you get this entire yacht to yourselves to do it. It's a show that HeavenToEarth.com's putting on. Take a look at that, and all the links are on the video that we released from the show last night. Because if you go, it's like I said, September 10th or 3rd through the 10th. This year, 2017, and also not very expensive for that tour. And you should take a look at the video because you see pictures of the actual yacht you're going to be on and the staterooms and everything that's going on over there. All right, I think that's the end of my shout-outs. If I forgot anybody, that's a lot of them anyways, right? Those are the guys that I'm helping promote for the tours and the things they got going on. So today, getting back to our show. Sorry, Daniel. Oh, I should do that at the end of the show so that way you can hang up, right? I can just run the spiel off. So we got Daniel back on here, and if you're looking at the screen, you see that his it's rising or raising. I always get those words mixed up. Raising Eden, probably rising Eden, right? I guess it's potatoes or potatoes, right?
Yeah, raising it is.
Raising, okay. That's just like, I say Orion Rising, and that's actually pronounced that way, but people don't know how to say Orion. They look at it and they say that wrong. I don't even know how they say it. If I say it wrong, I'll probably say it wrong forever. like they say Orion or something, you know. And so I'm like, I don't know where you get that. I don't know, Orion. You guys never seen even there's a picture. There's a company in Hollywood that's Orion, and they have the O, and it comes in the anyway. So you would think that they would understand that anyway. But Orion Rising. So I give myself a plug there, and for those of you who hate that I plug myself every show, change channel. So. Change channel. You gotta plug yourself, am I right, Daniel? Otherwise, who's gonna sell your books?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
good way to do it.
It's the
best
truth. It's the best way. I'm the only promoter here. Okay, so if you guys haven't seen Daniel before, you've missed out. But it's a good thing that you're tuning in now, because you guys have no idea that this guy, how incredible he is. His knowledge, his wisdom. He has ascended to a place that we can only hope to ascend to. He's like, he would be like the master sensei compared to most of us because of how far he has ascended. And we'll get into that. So I'm already talking too much. So Daniel, say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Welcome. Thank you again. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna turn the slideshow on so you guys can see some of the pictures that Daniel provided for me for you guys to take a look at. I ran that at the very beginning of the show, but I'm running it again now. So Daniel, just in case people don't know who you are and they did not know who you were and they missed all the first show that you were on, and I think we had you on. Did we have you on twice, or did we have you on once? I might have had you on.
Yeah, well, it was just once, but it's supposed to be twice.
Supposed to be twice, and I had to reschedule. Is that what it was? Right. Apologize for that. So at least I got you back on now. So yeah, tell everybody who you are and what you're about. That way they know, and where we can get your books. If you have a website, where that is, give them all that information and background information on you. Okay.
Well, I'm Daniel Dunn, aka DanielofDoriaa on YouTube, and I've made about 10,000 videos since about 2008, and they cover just about every single subject that you could ever need, really. And then I basically have the most suppressed channel on YouTube as well, in the human world, So,
that's no joke either.
I know, it's no joke. What I decided to do was, instead of fighting an uphill battle all this time, I decided to write all of my knowledge and wisdom into some books, to add some permanence to them so they, last within the world. So I've created a whole book trilogy, and I've just recently released the very last one of the trilogy a few weeks ago, on Amazon, and all of the books are available on Amazon. And the first one is Raising Eden, Wisdom of the Eternal, and that came out in November at the end of last year. And then the next one came out only in April 2017, just gone. And then the latest one, Raising Eden, Wisdom of the Ascendant, which is volume 3, that's just only recently come out. But like I said, all my books are available on Amazon, and they took a decade to create them all and put together and piece together from all of my YouTube work, all of the, because I develop a relationship with my higher self every day, so I've received a lot of new wisdom over the last few months and the last year and stuff. I've also, completely brought everything up to date till, up to about 2 weeks ago, really, and I put all of that in there as well. And it's basically just a whole decade of my heart and my soul, and all of the highest wisdom that I have poured into these 3 books that took like 10 years to make, and they're all available on Amazon in paperback. So that about sums it up, really. But as to where I go from here, it's all about, obviously, now these foundational pillars are in place, it's about creating very powerful spiritual communities the entire world over. That's where the work's going to go. But at the moment, it's just, promoting these books and making people aware that there is actually these books out there in this trilogy, So,
right, and now tell us about the books. Let's start with the first book. Tell us about what that book's about, and then run through the other books, and then I'll start asking you some questions about stuff. But let's start with book 1. What is book 1 about, and what inspired you to write that?
Well, the whole Raising Eden trilogy actually came from a vision I had more than a decade ago, and it was just one vision, but it was like I completely knew what it meant. It was a vision of like 2 different timelines, timelines of the Earth. One was a timeline in which the human race was, completely enslaved and, connected to a Hive computer AI system and stuff, and it had been completely, ravaged and completely pillaged of all its resources. It completely conquered, as you could say. And then it was like the race was divided into, like a subspecies as well, and like most of the human race was annihilated and taken out. Because they only wanted a small number so they could control them properly. Like today, they can't. The evil darkness and the predator consciousness. From the great abyss, as I call it. Which is the best, most accurate term, I think. To describe this consciousness, because it's like a predatory consciousness that infiltrates creation and infiltrates beings themselves within the creation and takes over, and influences them, and influences them from the level and dimension of mind itself, which means that they have total control of your mental environment where you actually have thoughts, So in order to defeat that kind of enslavement, you've got to really connect with yourself and be operating from a higher level, which is, obviously your heart, beyond the surface, shallow human mind and stuff, into your or what you are,
right?
And so the second vision was because in order for something to exist, this comes from my third book. In order for something to exist, it's got to be, aware of its own existence. It's got to be open to the possibility of itself, existing. And so what I did was I created like a vision, throughout the Raising Eden trilogy. That's one of the reasons for the, the pictures of the futuristic stuff and stuff, is because I'm creating a vision right now towards a timeline that I'd like humanity to create and head towards, you know what I mean? It's like, you've got to create the vision for people to go that way. It's the same with today with many movies and stuff, and, the way the elite are working on the consciousness, of the human population today, the native population on this world,
right,
is that they're trying to stare their creational power, because everyone's a creator. Everyone has infinite potential, and what the elites are trying to do is they're trying to steer people in the way that they want them. So I'm kind of countering that and providing people with a vision that there is a better way to do stuff. There is something. Look at this way. Look at this, and you can do it this way, and you could do this, and it will turn out like this. But that's down to the person. But the ultimate, most important thing is, in all of this that's going on is, how present are you to yourself? That's the most important thing, because, concentration of energy within a being is power. That's how the power translates. The more concentrated a being, the more influence that they're going to have within not only, the world itself and the universe, but also within all of the subdomains of like the mental environment and stuff as well, and the emotional planes and stuff, and the causal planes. But, ultimately that's the thing. So, the first book is basically, it covers absolutely everything, because it has to create the context of everything, so that people can look into it further and stuff, so it covers everything from UFOs to, being able to locate them within the world, and also it goes into Atlantis and the ancients. But the primary focus, though, is always on, self-empowerment. That's the ultimate thing, and that's the same within all of the books as well. It's, the focus is always on self-empowerment, which is actually the purpose of why I created the YouTube channel in the first place, and all of the other channels I do. It's that I wanted to create something where I gave the best of myself to, the world as a gift, that they can use for themselves as well, and that's it's practical, direct knowledge, basically, and wisdom that people can apply right now, this second, onwards, and that will make them more powerful, stronger, and certain within themselves. And so the second book, it kind of spirals outwards and goes into more detail and covers all of the subjects again, but in greater detail. But the focus again is on self-empowerment. And then the third book just it's like a spiral that fractally goes outwards, and it's ever expanding, ever adding new subjects and stuff into it. But ultimately, it's it just expands everything that was said in the second one and the first one, but just in greater detail. So yeah, that's about it. That's about sums it up.
Well, see, yeah, and that's good, because people need to they really need to understand that the way that the universe works, and the way that we need to work, and the things that we need to do for ourselves to make it. I mean, look at like he had just said, Daniel just said, where the power elite is trying to take us down one road, and they want it. You've heard us talk about this many times with all these different conspiracy guys that I've had on here, with the different psychics that I've had on here, and then me talking about the global banking corruption and all. These guys that are in charge of the planet think they're in charge of the planet. This world mafia, this behind the scenes group of rich fat cats that are different families across the world, who believe that they own this planet and that we're just their cattle. They believe that. And so everything that you see, you guys may not know this, but everything that you see on your television, your magazines, your radio, your movies that are made all across the world that we all watch, is tailoring you to set your ideology to a certain ideology that they want you to stay within, which is exactly where America is now, and I'm sure England is in the same position that we're in, where nothing has changed. We've gotten technology to toys to play with. We have video games. We have cell phones, smartphones. We have now computers that we can play with, but nothing else has changed since 1955. The combustion engine is still the exact same. The only difference is now we have a computer running it, but it's still the same engine. All the parts inside there. If you open up a Ford right now and you look at the Ford power steering pump, the power steering pump looks like a tin can. Looks like the original tin can they made the power steering pump out of back in the early 1900s. So it hasn't changed much. The Ford, anybody who's ever driven a Ford knows that when you get to the end of a Ford, it goes, and then when it starts to not have enough fluid in it, and you're turning the wheel, it starts telling you, starts squealing, right? Now, nothing's changed. Everyone knows their whole life that a Ford does that. So that's how you gauge when you need power steering fluid. When the Ford starts to whine at you, you go, need power steering fluid. Your grandfather taught you that. Nothing has changed. They don't want it to change. They want the status quo the way it is. And Daniel is one of these people, like we had Heather on here the other day. The same thing, forward thinking. We're going to have Travis Smith back on here again, and he's just a guy who looked around, and he's also wise enough to see this. And another person is forward thinking. And those of you who watched, and I keep going back to Stephen Greer is telling you the same things that Daniel's telling us right now. And Stephen Greer has been vetted in and talking to aliens, and you guys don't get it. Most of these guys, the alien guys, all they want to do, if we don't start the show and go, aliens, 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 they go, oh, I don't want to watch this show, I don't know what it's about, and then they try to run away from the show. Later, someone tells them, wait a minute, this has to do with all of that. It's all encompassed. We, as a race of people, if we want to be free and we want to be find ourselves in the universe and be a positive utopia, we need to break away from where they're trying to keep us as barbarians. We have to break away from that. We need to ascend to our own higher selves so that we can. There's two roads. Daniel touched on this slightly. There's two roads of thinking of where we're going to go, and Daniel saw that. There's two roads of thinking of where we're going to go, and I've known this. I just talked about this the other day. I've known this since I was in my 20s. It was being taught even back then. There's people who believe in doom and gloom and that the world's going to come to an end, and then there's people who don't. Now, it's even written in the Christian Bible where you're going to have the rapture and there's going to be people left behind. So that's bizarre, right? So what if that really is going to happen? What if there is going to be a split where those people who ascend are going to move on to the utopia that we're building, and those people who don't believe in it are going to be the left behind, and they're going to be stuck in that reality where the world is being run by this behind-the-scenes world mafia, and you're going to be a slave until they kill you, and then you may make your way back to us. What if that's true? Now, I don't believe that's true, because I'll tell you why. Because I believe Daniel, and I believe myself, and I believe people like me, and we're not going to let that happen. So those of you who are not caught up, you're going to have to catch up, because we're going to make you do it. Because we are going to not allow them to keep us where they are, and they can't do anything about it. They can kill us. We'll just recycle and come back. That's what pisses them off. If they killed Daniel today and they killed me today, I'd be born tomorrow or the next day. Actually, no, I was told that you take off sometime before you come back, but we would come back and someone just like me would come back, and it's still going to happen. They're just trying to hold on to it as long as they can by trying to bump people off or doing like they do to Daniel, where they have delete his stuff. And it's true. He said that at the beginning. If you missed that, he's the most deleted and abused person on YouTube because people hate on him because they're trying to keep him down, because what he's doing is what everybody needs to know. And so because of that, they're going after him. Am I right? They've been doing that to you for years, right, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, death threats are, commonplace, towards me and stuff, all of the time and stuff. But, I just wanted to say as well, mankind, are going to continue to becoming weakened and diseased and disempowered, and the species is going to perish, if it continues to walk in the shadow of its own enlightenment. Right. The tides are turning against us, so who will you turn to for your strength, power and stability? And, I always say the singular truth within, the part of you, basically, that never left God, and I also, there's something I say all of the time, which is, you've got to transcend by fear, transcend by shadow, and imbue and ascend with by love. And the other thing that people need to know is, as long as the money that everybody's using is allowed to be printed out of thin air, and people are apathetic, people are apathetic to the truth, the living singular truth within themselves as well, right? Then few evil men and beings have full control over your life, your children, and your future.
And he's absolutely right. And I don't know if you guys know, I'm going to plug myself again. Daniel's probably did that on purpose. I wrote a book about that, and it's called How to Get Out of Debt, Surviving in the 21st Century. And it tells you and explains in there how money is made out of thin air. If you don't know how the U.S. dollar is made, how the English pound is made, how the French mark is made, these are all made out of thin air. They have a banking system. We have what we call the Fed, and over in the UK, and I give the English so much credit for, and I hope you guys stay out of the European Union and stay on your own monetary system. I really do, because that was ruining you. It was ruining your economy, ruining your people. The Irish almost opted out and wish they did. The Greeks almost opted out, and I'm sure they wish they did. I'm glad you guys voted yourselves out of that and stay out of that. Don't join any union. Keep your United Kingdom and do that. You know what I mean? Fight. Keep away from those people. There's a banking system out there that's ruining us, guys, and they just decide, our government just decides they want $100 million for something, and they go to the Fed and say, we want $100 million. We voted on it. The Fed writes a check and takes that and gives it to the U.S. Treasury, and there is no money in that bank account. And the U.S. Treasury prints $100 million and puts it into circulation and gives it to the bank, and they sell bonds on it, and then you and I in America owe money. We owe that $100 million back because they borrowed it basically from us and printed it out of thin air. So you and I have to pay for it through taxes. That happens all over the world with the different banking commissions that are in the different countries. The UK has their own. The European Union has theirs, which is even worse than the Fed over here. Anyway, so go ahead, Daniel. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that, it made me laugh about the Brexit and everything. And I found out some, revelations about the Brexit and Trump. And it's all interlinked into each other. And I actually did some deep research, as much as anybody could do, like journalistic, kind of detective work. And I found out that a lot of the companies that actually swung and influenced people using the tools that is Facebook and Google. The reason for the power swing within the world at the moment is because not only did Trump's friends, Trump and Russian billionaires get together, but they actually took psychological warfare out of from the industrial military complex, from the realms of war, and actually did it on the civilian population itself. And Trump and Brexit are completely linked in with one another. Mm-hmm. And I backtrack loads of computer companies actually back to Canada who actually helped using Facebook and Google itself, which in on it as well, right, to actually swing the vote to actually get Trump as the president of the United States. And Google, of course, they deleted the entire history of all of their, all of this going on because they can.
Because they can. Right? So see, now, that would suggest like everything that's going on in the news right now would be a red herring. And for those people who don't know what that means because you're too young to know what a red herring means, that means that's the sleight of hand. They're telling you, look over here. The Democrats are saying he worked with the Russians to askew the vote, and they're letting that play out. Yeah, look over here. It was the Russians. Yeah. And now there's this big committee and had nothing to do with it. But the truth is, he didn't work with the Russians, right? The truth is, he worked with everybody else. And so they're letting that play out on the news so that you're so obsessed with trying to find that Trump had something to do with Putin and that the two of them had all this to do, and it was really Google and Facebook and Trump and what was the name who were the people that you used? What was their name?
It was just some computer companies in Canada.
Right.
And
see, look,
just
there you go.
The history, basically Google, if they do anything that's against like companies, and they're actually in the news at the moment about even other companies like Kelku, I think it's called Kelku or something, but they were making traffic less for them and more for Google, if you know what I mean, like putting all their stuff top and putting all Kelku's and all the competition to the bottom because they don't like competition basically. But when it comes to the Brexit and the Trump thing, it's all linked. It's one big machine that's working together. The whole Brexit and Trump thing. It's not separate. It's a unified entity. And like I says, the power of Google and Facebook, has been used to influence the masses because they're using now psychological warfare. They took it out of the realm of military application and they're actually using it on the civilian population now. On a world scale, and that's how the balance got tipped. How it is at the moment, because they're using all this on the civilian population. I was going to say as well, with the Shetu, which is my term for the greys and some of that predator consciousness that's on the world and stuff,
right.
And that is controlling the world. Humanity is always on the precipice of total disaster,
right.
And even the extinction of itself. So a person's got to be as self-sufficient as possible to ensure the greater chance of survival and stuff. Because the Shetu and the allies, they have full control of the world economy. They can collapse it any day they do so choose. And that's too much power over others for any group of beings to have.
Absolutely.
That's total power over beings like this. It's called slavery. So basically, don't allow this insanity to continue.
Right, I agree with that 100%. And you guys should be prepared just in case something like that happens. And again, there's a book that I wrote. Right, take a look at my book. It'll teach you if you don't know how to do it, and take care of yourself and get prepared just in case something happens. And not only if the government decides to go crazy and lock everything down, but just in and of itself, if you live anywhere in the world, there are natural disasters that happen in your area, and you should be prepared for that, just in case something happens, so you're not without food. The average American, I don't know how it is in the UK, but the average American only has about 3 or 4 days of food in their stores in their house that they keep. They don't keep much more than that unless they've just gone to the show or to the store to the market and picked up a bunch of food and put it in their freezer. Otherwise, they average about 4 or 5 days worth of food, and they have even less in water. Right now, truthfully, I don't have much water stores. I have about a gallon of water, and I know I need to fix that. But that's you need to have like the average person goes through a liter of water a day. You have to have, and that includes like washing yourself and drinking, not just drinking. Depending on where you are, hotter zones, you need to drink about a liter of water a day because you're going to sweat it out. Colder zones, you don't need to drink as much, but you also need to have water to cook with. You need to have water to clean your clothes with. You need to have water to wash your dishes with. So about a liter per person per day. And if you're in America, you can just round it up to a gallon. It's it's only a little bit different from a liter. If you're in America, you can use a gallon because that's what they use here. But everywhere else on the planet, a liter a day. And that's what you need to do. You need to plan for that and have some stuff stored, and just in case. And then the most important thing, even if you don't believe in any of that, the most important thing is that you need to look into yourself, and you need to actually change and change yourself spiritually. You need to get away from I don't care if you believe in any gods. I don't care if you're an atheist. I don't care about that. I don't care any of that. I don't care what God you believe in, because none of that's important. It's not that important. I mean, it is, but it's not, and you'll find that out. Because I tell those people, Daniel, that don't believe in that it's not important because it's not. The message is more important. You and I know where they'll get once they start on the path. So they'll get to a point where what I'm saying to you, people who might say, wait, no, that is important. That's because you're ready for that. Those people who aren't, it's not that important. It's the message. What you need to do is you need to enhance yourself. You need to better yourself because, like Daniel said, we're getting sicker and sicker and sicker and weaker and weaker and weaker. So we need to get bigger. We need to get stronger. And how do we do that? We have to center ourselves and focus and eat healthy. We have to ground ourselves to this planet instead of not being in touch with the Earth itself or the universe. We have to acknowledge that it's there and feel it. Am I wrong in that, Daniel?
No, that's absolutely right. You've got to basically all the parts of yourself that you've never given thought to, give some thought to and give some time to, because ultimately it comes down to self-love first. And I in the spiritual movement, a lot of people think that love is all wishy-washy and fluffy and stuff, but ultimately it's not. Ultimately
Right.
it's the most powerful force within existence itself, and life can only exist because of love. The creator itself, fractured itself into all of the varying parts that we can perceive now. Not only the creation itself, but all of the beings within the creation itself. And everything at the highest level is just one unit of energy. And on our level, obviously, we see an entire world, and we see planets and stars, and we see individual beings and stuff. But that ultimately is just an illusion, because the only thing that's separating all of that energy, and allowing it to be able to express itself, is the magnetic field. And the magnetic field is what cordons off the energy and allows it to exist, within form and time itself. And as soon as you have a magnetic field, you birth time, because time is like a glue that slows down the manifestations and projections of energy, so beingness and form can actually exist itself and stuff. But like you were saying earlier though about these darker forces, rather than hijacking reality, and using their own energy to do so, the Shetu and the self-proclaimed elites, they try to foment an atmosphere of vulnerability, so people hijack their own reality and gift it to the slave masters willingly. That's one of the things they do. And God, basically the master creator, anything's possible for God. It's a pure, selfless, benevolent love, and it has infinite power to be able to create anything. And these beings themselves, these fallen angels, they a long time ago they got very angered by this, and jealous of God the Creator and the fallen angels, because of wanting more power themselves and wanting
Right.
more. They wanted the powers of the Most High, but when this didn't work out the way they wanted, like children, they decided to rebel against it. And now, they use humanity and countless races within the multiverse to mock God by getting them to war on one another, as much as possible. And they spend the time just infiltrating and corrupting, not only the creation as much as possible, but all of the beings within the creation itself. Because God basically gave free will to all beings, the Shetu, the fallen angelics, the allies, including the self-proclaimed elites, humans of this world and stuff, and all decided to be, masters of evil, because this was the only space within creation itself that they felt that they could occupy and they could rule. Because they knew that nobody could possessed the power of God the Creator, and they can't create or replicate it in any way near what God can do, basically. So the beings not only imitate or make inferior copies of themselves, mastery of God, but they also, they're just basically a shallow, pale reflection in comparison, to that. So yeah, I just wanted to say some of that.
Right. No, I agree 100%. And Josie in the chat brought up a very good point for those of you guys, in case you're not looking at the chat. She said it's always useful, very useful, to learn about indigenous plants because there's so many. And that brings up a good point, because I'm back in California now, but I had moved to Arizona, and I lived there for 4.5 years in Arizona. And my buddy that was living out here in California said, "Wow, man, you better figure out what you're going to do, because if the world goes crazy, you're in the middle of a desert and you're gonna starve to death. And I'm over here in the city where we have squirrels and all this, and I'll be fine. I'm worried about you." So I was like, yeah, man, maybe he's right. So I better look this up. So I looked up the indigenous plants and realized that I have a virtual salad in that desert that have far more edibles in that desert than you have in the modern city by thousands. Because in the modern city, they knock everything down, they plant what's pretty. And most of the time, what's pretty is poisonous to us. so we can't consume it. So most of the stuff that you have, I don't know how it is in England or over in the UK, but here in America, that's what they do. They knock down everything when they build a housing tract completely to nothing, and then they plant trees and plants that are pretty. Well, most of those are poisonous, so we can't eat them. So over in the desert, it's natural things that have evolved that because over time, we pull out and kill most of the plants that are poisonous to us, except for the pretty ones, and the rest of them we can eat. So I found out that the desert, you could walk out, I could go less than a mile from my house and get asparagus, pull right out of the ground, and different grasses that you can eat and plants that you can eat. And I was like, I said to him back, I added it into my book. So if you guys ever read my book, you'll see that I tell you some of the stuff that I had in Arizona. You just have to look around and find out what you have. In the modern city, I'm over by Sacramento, California, which is the capital of California, and it's wall-to-wall city. The only way I would be able to find something to eat is find a rural area where people planted stuff in their backyard where there's oranges and apples and things like that. So it's important to learn what's in your area is what I'm bringing up, because Josie had that point. It was a great point. Study them, find out what's going on and what's available. And I'm reading now again what she wrote. Study them. It's insane what is available even in our flower beds, she said. So yeah, and that's the other thing too. You can plant stuff if you have a yard, if you have a garden. The people in the rest of the world call it a garden. We call it a backyard. If you have a garden, plant. If you have a backyard, plant. You can plant foods that you can grow, and protect it from the elements and from the other animals. That will cut down the amount of money you have to pay to go to the grocery to get stuff to eat. That's just the stuff for survival. But the important thing is what Daniel's trying to say is that, and learn who you are, learn to love who you are, because those of you who want to communicate with aliens that are out there and you want disclosure for these aliens that are out there, you're not going to get it from the government. Daniel just told you that. You're not going to get it from them. They don't want you to know about it. They're trying to hide it from you. You're not going to get disclosure. You're never going to force the government. The American government they're in denial. All other governments have come out and said there are aliens, they're real. The American government is refusing to come out and say that because of how embedded they are with these aliens. It's the only way you're going to get that to happen. And Dr. Stephen Greer tell you this. Daniel's telling you this. I've been telling you this. Heather, the psychic's telling you this. The other psychics we've had on are all telling you this. The conspiracy guys that we've had on are all telling you this. So you got to understand, you guys are never going to force the federal government until we put it in their face. So the only way you're going to get disclosure is you, me, and everyone else. We are going to be the disclosure. Guys like Daniel, guys like me, we're going to work together and we're going to ascend to a point. Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer, watch the videos I've posted. He has done that. He has, through meditation, gotten himself to a point where he is vibrating at a certain vibration level, and that he is in love with himself, he loves himself, and he loves the universe, and his intentions are true, and he, through telepathy, because of his meditation, is able to communicate with aliens and call them down and they land, and he says, "Hi, how you doing?" and talks to them. You want disclosure? You can do it yourself. You can learn and then meditate, just like Daniel said, and get spiritually to a place where they'll come and talk to you. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and I'm sure Daniel's going to do it, and at some point, we're going to be able to do that. So you guys need to do it as well. Am I wrong, Daniel? Am I right in that?
Well, I don't think I'll do it, because a lot of the races, around us at the moment, it's like,
most of them don't want to talk to us anyway, right?
Well, I mean, true allies, they don't intervene within the world, whatsoever.
Right.
Our true allies are very, very far from here. What you see within the world now are all of the pirates and,
right.
The bad ones, basically. Because there's a certain procedure and a protocol to actually getting into contact with races. And one of the things is, ultimately, when that race has reached a certain point, then, of its own, volition, it will want to contact the races around it. But most of this is actually, it's always done off-world on space stations and, off-world, so the space itself isn't invaded and stuff. And, so there's no ambiguity to what's actually going on, if you know what I mean. It's like, the selves, the people themselves, they have to set the terms of engagement. Otherwise, if you don't, you're already within, a sea that's already deeper than you could ever know. basically. So so the good races, benevolent races, always, they give guidance from afar, but they will never intervene because they know it's our job, and it's up to us to do the work. And ultimately, it's a personal journey as well between us and God the Creator, and as a collective humanity as well. So a lot of benevolent races are actually far from here, and they'd never come here. A lot of the ones who are coming here are actually the dark masquerading as light, but they never reveal themselves as the dark because they obviously people won't accept evil, if it's in the face, but they will accept them if it presents itself as a friend or something, So right. That's kind of how things are operating within this world at the moment, and. Right. I mean, like we were speaking about earlier about dimensional spaces for evil, it's like if you're very naive about how things work in the universe, because we are within a very predatory universe, and it's a highly competitive environment, and on a macrocosmic level, just like the microcosmic world that we're in now, it's a direct reflection. What's happening on Earth now is actually happening around us as well. So it's not just some fairy tale fantasy world where every being's living on a higher state or something, which is one of the great a lot of alien races are using that against the human race to get control and get a foot, like a beachhead within the world itself, to start manipulating people, But I see the actual disclosure movement as, I actually personally see it as one of the main vehicles for the alien intervention itself within the world. So, I've got like a completely opposite view when it comes to, Greer and, that kind of thing at the moment, because I uncovered over many, many different years, many different, startling facts as well. And I even put them into a Transcendent series that I created many years ago, and it covered the Disclosure Project and what it used to be called and stuff, and actually went in depth into this as well, and showed that it has deep links to the Rockefeller, the Rockefeller Initiative, I think it was called,
right,
back a long time ago, and it had deep links to Rockefellers, and the Rockefellers and everybody, and the Rothschilds are the actual ones who are actually subjugating humanity in the first place. So then I found a lot of links to ancient Sumeria and the Owl of Moloch and stuff, and the ancient demonic forces, which is the Shatu, which is what I'm actually speaking about, which is, whatever the plan is, they've been planning it for many, many thousands of years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been going on for a long time, and even Dr. Greer was talking about the cover up of like Roswell and everything since then. That there's been for 70 years they've been running this show and doing what they're doing now, and that this goes back and ties back to even further, like you said, thousands of years where these people ran things at the turn of the century when Ford. I say this every time. It's a quote that I tell you that Ford, when he was making his vehicles at the time, he was going to run them on batteries, not on fossil fuels. He wasn't going to use. He needed some oil to oil grease some of the machines, but he wasn't going to run on gasoline. He built his machine and it was battery operated. But who owned the oil fields? That was the Rockefellers, right? Wasn't it the Rockefellers? They owned the oil, so they went to the other companies in Europe and said, make your vehicles on fossil fuels, and then Ford had to change because otherwise people were going to be not wanting to buy his batteries. They were going to want to buy the stuff over there because they were working at the time with electricity, and who owned electricity? His buddy, right? So they were going to out him just like they outed Tucker in the 40s when Tucker was building a vehicle that had all the safety features that are on vehicles today. But he did that in 1945, 46, and 47. And there's like 10 Tucker vehicles left in the world. Watch the movie. There's a movie called Tucker. Jeff Bridges plays Tucker. And all these guys went against him and went to the metal companies and said, don't sell him steel. So he can't manufacture his car. They went to the rubber companies and said, don't sell him rubber. They went to the gas companies and said, don't sell him fuel. Okay? And they all got together and did that. And they did that to Ford. Ford said, back at the turn of the century, it must have been 1920, 1930. Ford said that if Americans knew how the world economy actually worked, there would be a revolution today. That was more than 110 years ago when he said that.
Yeah, and it's true, and that's not just a one-case thing either. They've been doing it the entire time. Because look at it this way. First of all, you've got God the Creator, and it's create this beautiful, benevolent creation, directly out of love, out of its own body, didn't create the universe, it became the universe.
Right.
Everything, that we have, we are part of the body of God, basically.
Right.
Every single atom, every single thought or emotion is all connected to the source from whence we came and stuff. And, evil itself only survives and thrives within an environment of disharmony and a dimensional space where there is a disharmonious resonance, because it is a disease. It's a disharmony. So therefore, it can't, unless it creates disharmony within the harmony that is God, within that perfection and that creation, it can't actually exist.
Right.
So, but I mean, one of the good things about this is, in a healthy creation, if it's created and it's then corrupted and there's disharmony and disease within it, the earth itself, because it's got its own consciousness, or even the creation itself, or through the benevolent powers of God, the Master Creator, it will be corrected by some higher power. And people have to realise as well that this isn't judgment. This is the way it has to be, because all life is one. So if it's not this way, then all life and all dimensions would be at risk and would be completely destroyed if it wasn't this way. So that's the way that God's kind of set up the game as well. Like, it always auto-corrects itself, because there's so many buffer zones and so many buffers and safety procedures, even within the fabric of reality and creation itself, that, if it was to get really disharmonious, to a certain level, it would swing back again, like an elastic bang, like elastic, flicking back.
Right. I agree with that 100%. And it's true. And the entire concept of what he's talking about, guys, is not new. He's not coming up with something that's brand new, and this is something Daniel made up. This is the reality of what everything really is. If you go to these modern day churches, they're more like cults anyways. They always have been. They're not going to teach you self-empowerment, because they want you, just like Jesus. If you guys want to look at that Bible, the New Testament, Jesus fought against that. He was talking about self-empowerment, just like Daniel's talking about. And I know I've said this before, and Daniel was like, whoa, Leo, don't compare me to Jesus. He did that. But those guys were talking about trying to keep you coming to their place and giving them money and worshiping them, and you can't worship God unless you come to our box and worship in our box. And Jesus was teaching self-empowerment, teaching that you don't need to do that, that you need to worship on your own, and you need to get yourself enlightened. And so what Daniel's teaching now is not a brand new message. This has been, other people have been teaching this throughout time. And again, I'm not trying to equate Daniel with Jesus. He doesn't like me to do that. He gets kind of annoyed when I do that, because other people get annoyed and say, hey, Daniel's not Jesus. No, he's not, and he doesn't claim to be. He never equated himself that way at all. It's me that and a couple other people that have said, your message is kind of like Jesus's, and he's like, whoa, right? So just so you guys know, it's not. I'm trying to show you that it's not a brand new message, and that other people, not just Jesus, there's been other people. Muhammad has come out and said the same. There's other deities, there's other figures out there who are teaching the same message of love, the same message of self-empowerment. Look at the Quran. Look at the all of the Quran is the same way. All of the Talmuds that are out there that are based on the Judeo-Christian Bible, usually, if you pay attention, they're teaching self-empowerment. Even the Old Testament that the Hebrews used, that they got from Moses, was self-empowerment. Moses was self-empowerment. It was the churches themselves that corrupted that and turned that into, you have to come to us, and we'll tell you what to do and what to think. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that's been happening since the dawn of time that Daniel's talking about. The churches are involved in it. The churches have been doing it. They keep you just learning what they want you to learn, and only knowing what they want you to know, and not going off. There was a time in the Catholic religion that you couldn't own your own Bible, because they didn't want you reading it. They only wanted you to know what they told you. That's the truth. And then, of course, they only did it in Latin until 50 years ago. And then they decided to start doing it in English. Now, if that's not control, I don't know what is. So I'm not trying to say those religions are wrong, because the idea is correct. Some people say Jesus never existed. I don't care if he did or he didn't. The idea and the message that Jesus is portraying is the important thing. Whether that man actually existed or not, doesn't matter. Whether any of that's true, whether it's all made up, whether everything Moses said was made up and Moses was made up and all of that was made up, if it's all fake, it doesn't matter. The message itself is true. And that's what Daniel's trying to tell you. The message itself is true. There is out there in the universe a entity, whether you want to call it God or you want to call it the supreme power, whatever you want to call it that makes you feel comfortable. There is a power in the universe that is positive, that the people here who are in charge are trying to keep you disconnected from, and you don't know it. Okay, and this is what Daniel's trying to tell you in a nutshell. Am I wrong on that, Daniel?
No, that's absolutely right. And even there's natural cycles of being, within the universe, and other things, and the Gregorian calendar and the Gregorian clock, for example. It's that basically these beings, they try to disconnect you from your inner power as much as possible, and in every way possible as well. And that's also one of the reasons why, in the morning you get many different letters and bills and stuff, because they're trying to break that peace within your being, so you're always getting loads of bills for your post all of the time, for loads of different things, and that's one of the they're trying to fragment you as much as possible instead of having you as a unified, concentrated being. And what I said earlier was concentration within a being is power. The more concentrated energy within yourself, the more integrity you've got. The more integrity you've got, the more change and influence that you will have on, all of the living systems around you. And because we're in a living reality itself, you're going to have influence upon every single mind and every single part of the creation itself, because you are more concentrated. You're the most powerful singularity within that area, within the creation. Therefore, all of the energies will, come to you, if you know what I mean. They will align with your frequency and stuff. But, people do need to know that there is a group of people within the world who don't want to see people shining the brightest that they can. And sadly, they don't want to see people empowered, or what I like to see is, empowered,
Right.
I create my own living language as I go, because I don't believe language should be stagnant and just rigid, in just one set way. It's got to have vibrancy. It's got to have presence. Presence is ultimately the most important thing in anything. So the language of English, and when there's a set language, it's a dead language. But I create a living language, and people should, they should create a living language, because as they go along, they should create their own words. They should start using their own words, because then there's a quantum leap within the actual process of, your own expansion of consciousness as well, and your own evolution and things, and
yeah, I agree with that. Michael Tellinger, just as an example, and then I'll let you continue. Michael Tellinger loves to say, like the word, I understand, or do you understand? He says, I don't like to use that word understand, because I don't stand under anyone.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm speaking about. And when I speak about creating spaces and contexts, to exist within, it's very important that as soon as you create an idea or a sphere of existence, and even when you look at your own life, look at your own sphere of existence of where you exist and where you are, and see if there's any space within that where these darker forces can latch onto. And if there is, make sure that you're occupying that space, and you don't allow your own naivety to destroy and ultimately kill you and stuff, which is one of my lessons that I learned quite a while ago. The lesson that you can't actually save anybody else or their life. You can heal them and guide them into their own power. So never try to save anybody, because I learned the hard way. I nearly died a few times from doing that, until I actually learned my lesson. I'm actually very, very thankful to actually be here still. But
right, I agree.
One of the most important things I want to say though is one of the most important spiritual lessons that people overlook, and I haven't seen any work on it, very, not enough anyway. I mean, there's work out there that covers it, but when it comes to presence, presence is everything. Not having that space inside yourself for darkness to enter into, that's the most important thing. You've got to stand fully in your own integrity and occupy yourself indefinitely, all of the time, fully. So how present are you to yourself?
Yeah.
Because that's one of the most profound spiritual questions that one can ask is, how present are you even to this moment right now? Because if you're not present to yourself, how are you going to be able to give presence to anybody else around you in your life or in the environment or place in which you live either? And like I was saying earlier, concentration is power in a being, so you've got to be present to yourself as much as you can, because everything in life comes down to this. Love itself is presence, basically.
Right, absolutely. Well said, well said. And guys, listen to what he just said, because it's the honest truth. Everything that he's saying right there in that comment was 100% true. And you have to be true to yourself. You have to be present, and that way, pardon me. The only way that they can try and get to you, like he said, the only way that darkness can get to you is if you're open to that, because you're not present in yourself. So you don't have to fight and combat evil or darkness. They have less power. They have less power. They want to pretend that they don't. In all the movies, like with Star Wars, the dark side always tries to say that they have more power. They don't. And if you look at the difference, and I love this, and Daniel, I know, because you and I with the Jedi, and if you didn't see our last show before, Daniel took one look at my beard and knew that I was a Jedi, and I am a Jedi. I'm listed in the Jedi school in New Zealand. And the ideology that was so out of, he's the only person that's ever looked at me and said, "You're a Jedi, aren't you?" And I went, "Whoa, yes, wow, how do you know that?" He said, "You got the beard." And I said, "Yeah, but you're not supposed to know that." But he's an striving Jedi. There's some of us that are out there that confess to that. Now, if you look at, and I know I'm going to use this analogy, but it was a movie, but if you look at when Qui-Gon Jinn was fighting the Sith, and they were there, and it was Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and they had gotten separated because they were in between those barriers that were up, that were laser barriers, and they couldn't. And the difference between the two, Qui-Gon sat down, knelt down in the lotus position, and meditated while he was waiting for those to open. He was on his knees with his saber off, with his eyes closed, and the Sith was prancing back and forth like a tiger overlooking his prey, right? And just trying to act like he was just the evil, and he was just, but you know what? He got nothing for it, okay? He got nothing for it, because as soon as the doors opened, Qui-Gon actually was able to get up off the ground, open his eyes, light his saber, and block the blow before he could even hit him. Now, I know that ultimately you're going to say, well, ultimately Qui-Gon was killed. Okay, well, ultimately Qui-Gon was killed. In the real universe, he probably wouldn't have been. In the movie, they had to move the movie along, and Qui-Gon needed to die so that Obi-Wan could become the mentor, so that when they found Anakin, Obi-Wan was the mentor, because that's how it worked, because of the book, the way the books ran. Okay, so that was the storyline to keep you going as an author. I know that. That's what you do, right? But in the reality of the world, even if it did happen, it was supposed to happen to inspire Obi-Wan, just like when Obi-Wan died, it happened to inspire Luke and to keep the passion going and things, and you have to understand that. So the difference, my point here is that if you are calm and in the moment and in the presence, then you're not going to be overcome by the evil, and that was that scene. I know it was a long, drawn-out explanation to get where Daniel was going, but I just wanted to give you guys that because everybody's seen those movies just about. All right, Daniel, I'm sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like you says, though, you've got it spot on, because ultimately, this is a profound saying as well, and that is that, God is still, everything else is in motion. So if you want to connect to the highest power, then you've got to become still, and not only, do you become still within yourself, and connect to that inner power, but as soon as you become, as strong and as powerful within as yourself, as you possibly can, and also learn to say no, because if anybody's trying to corrupt you or take you from, the golden path, is what I like to call it, of your soul, you've got to be internally strong and externally strong as well, eventually, but that comes later, because I always say as well, when those who love peace, those who are good and love peace can organise as good as those who are evil and love war. Only then shall there be peace, within the world. So I always say, don't allow a space outside yourself, and also don't allow a distortion of space even within yourself either to exist. Because the forces of darkness try to create this beachhead, and try to attach and bind to you. So it's like we said last time, Leonard, when we were talking about spiritual armour. It's very important to wear your spiritual armour and strengthen it daily to be immune to all of these attacks.
Right, absolutely.
Then, their unsuccessful attempts, on trying to make you, weaker, eventually they just won't bother with you. Or
right.
every time they try to use energy against you, you can turn it up on its head and use it against them. For example, every time they deleted one of my YouTube channels, I'd make 2 YouTube channels. Every time did something else, I'd make 2 of them.
Right.
So every time it attacked me, I'd also always focus more energy and tension onto that specific point. So every time I was under attack or whatever, by any force or whatever, they always they back off, because they're not doing anything apart from making me stronger and making it worse for themselves. You know, and also I use anything that they fire against them anyway. So
right.
You know, it's not good for them, is it?
Right.
You know?
And it's far easier, you know, like he said, to literally just turn it over on its end and send it right back to them. You have to understand how that works. And when they send this energy and negative energy towards you or at you, you just have to literally flip it over and send it back. Now, Josie made a comment in the what we're talking about just a second ago. She says they're trying as much as they can to keep up the image that they're in power, but it's a lie. They're losing big time, and that's the truth. They're trying to keep up the image that they're in control and that they're in power, and the same thing was with the dark side in the movies, and the dark side of reality is they're trying to tell us that they're in charge. But if they were really in charge, you know, I say this all the time, and I know a lot of people have a problem with gun control, but if they were really in charge, there still wouldn't be 280 million guns in America, because they would have taken them from us already. But the fact that we have these guns in America it shows that they're not as brave as they think they are. They're not as in charge as they think they are. Because the second they decide to use the military in America to start kicking in doors, they would literally have to try and do what they tried to do to the Knights Templar. They would literally have to try and find out who has every gun and have at least 4 or 5 people standing at all of their doors at the exact same time and kick in every door in the United States of America at the exact same time. And the idea of them being able to do that in a country this large with this many people without getting caught and without Americans knowing about it is nil. That's why they haven't done it. And if they start doing it, there'll be a revolution in America in a second. 2 million people in the last 10 years have moved out of the cities and started living off grid in the United States. And that's just how many they know have done it. I know there's more than that because I'm on the channels and I'm on the chat and I talk to those people. Ex-military, guys who are in the military complex, get out, and the first thing they do is take their family and they run them out into the wilderness somewhere and start living off the grid and living where people just don't know where they are. And there's groups that are living in the mountains and they're telling each other, military guys that are telling other military guys on sites that the government doesn't know about, move here when you get done. This is going to be a safe zone if something happens. So that should tell you something. And I'm not trying to create fear. What I'm trying to show you is that there's people that are being proactive out there that are ensuring and standing on a wall that you don't know is happening, and they're fighting a war that you guys don't know is happening, and that Daniel knows, and that I know, and that some of you do know, that there is a war that's going on and has been going on for thousands of years, and you guys can't see it. And they try to tell you this in movies like what was that movie with Keanu Reeves where I can't think of the name of the movie now, but where he was fighting the war against evil and no one could see it, and Rachel Weisz was in it, and all of a sudden she could see the demons and they weren't supposed to. There's a war going on right now that Constantine, thank you, whoever just threw that into my head, Constantine, thank you. There's a war going on that you guys don't know about that we need to take back ourselves and as a species here on this planet, because those people are trying to sell us off, lock, block, and tackle. Okay, and we're needing to not be their slaves. They think that we're slaves. We need to prove that they're not. If you want disclosure and you want aliens to be communicating with you, you need to fix yourself. You can't just look to the government and say, take more charge of me, take more charge of us, and oh, by the way, while you're at that, tell us about aliens now, or else what? You got nothing. They look at you and say you got nothing because you are nobody. You're sickly, you're weak, you think you're going to be at any moment taken over by the devil because I made you believe that, and that's what they make you believe. So anyway, am I wrong in that, Daniel? I'm just ranting here.
No, it's good stuff, and I enjoy, listening to what you say as well. And, no matter, what the self-proclaimed elites and the shadow government and all the allies do, it all seems to be backfiring on them anyway. On the surface, it looks like their plans are working, But when you really look deeper, into the core of it, you realise that, the plans actually aren't working. They've had their day already. They're hanging on to the last shreds of what they once had, and they're creating the last stand, basically. That's what I call it. The last stand in battle, when you do everything you can to fight for the last, moment, and you try not to lose. And one of the big differences in the world today is that people are awakening, en masse, and it's like no other time in history.
Yep.
Because the people go within, and they don't concentrate on the chaos within the world. And if they're focused upon their own empowerment and empowerment, the more power and the more people that can create this energy, the more reality will actually respond to that energy as well. And then there's no longer any space for negative hierarchical structures or control systems to exist, in that space anymore. They're just not sustainable. And
right,
one of the reasons why, that's one of the reasons why everybody needs to really be in true relationship with the inner self. And through the outer hardship of all of this stuff going on, it actually forges internal determination, and it actually creates inner resilience and a stronger bonding. And it's this bind of doing things together as a human race and being present to one another in life, that creates and pulls, everything forwards, and actually creates that unity and makes the bond stronger anyway. So, it's a prime importance that every day as well, that people, one of the most important things is that people create their willpower every single day as well, because willingness, is expansion itself. So make sure that you're creating willpower, and make sure that you know your own power as well, in yourself.
Absolutely. I want to point out that when I said, Constantine, thank you to whoever was that put that in my head, I looked over the chat and there was nothing in the chat, and I thought to myself, Josie, and I was almost going to say, thank you, Josie, for putting that into my head, and I looked back and it popped up in the chat, so she was thinking it and typing it, and I caught it and said, Constantine, thank you for whoever that was, and then in my mind I knew that it was Josie, but there was nothing in the chat, so I didn't say it out loud, so I just want to point that out, that I picked that up and then saw it in the chat. I looked at the chat, there was nothing there, said thank you for whoever put that into my head, and my brain said that was Josie. Didn't say anything until I saw it just now, so I wanted to point that out. So that was kind of rocking. I wanted to say that. But yeah, that's, the truth is, like Daniel's saying, the truth is that if you look at any kind of war that's going on anywhere in any movie, you'll notice that, if you don't have the people say this is darkest just before the dawn. If you look at all these movies, even going back to the Star Wars movies, the Star Trek movies, every movie that you see, you'll find that the dark side puts everything they have when they know they're losing, everything they have into what's going on. And it's so overwhelming that the light side thinks they're losing. But there's a few people who don't believe that, and they know that they can get the job done in overwhelming odds. And it looks horrible, and it looks like there's no way out, and you're not going to make it. And then there's those few people who refuse, like I said, they refuse to believe that because they know we're stronger than that, and we're going to defeat you. And it's just a matter of hubris is a great thing. Is it because you people who are innately dark or negative or evil, they have a very big ego. Okay, so ego gives light to hubris. Hubris is, if you don't know what that is, hubris is when someone, because of their ego, they're very easy to fool, they're easy to trick, and they're easy to goat into doing something. If you can get somebody angry, you can make them do what you want, because they'll be so frustrated with you that they're just trying to win, and they'll go and do everything they can do to try to hurt you, and they usually burn themselves out. And that's exactly what happens. And what's happening now in this world is, we went from one era, and we're moving into another era. And I talk about this on every show because it's true. If you look at 2012, the Mayans wrote a calendar and showed that this era ended. Baktun 12 ended, and we're moving into Baktun 13. And right now we're in the transitional phase. Dr. Stephen Greer talked about this as well. We're in the transitional phase. That era has ended, but the new era hasn't begun yet. So because we're in the transitional phase before the new era begins, the darkness is trying to do everything they can to prove that they're in charge and that they rule and that we have no hope. Okay? And that's the opposite of the truth. If we just continue the course and better ourselves and realize they're not in charge and we will do what we're going to do and we're going to make this happen, we will have a utopia soon. We just have to change a few things, which means we have to literally just do it. We have to stop being lazy, and we have to say, we need to recycle. We need to change what we're using and stop using fossil fuels. What if we tell them just to stop? When people got mad and said, we need something else, all of a sudden, they started making hybrid cars. All of a sudden, they started making biofuel. Where do you think that came from? That didn't come because the government decided to do it. It became because people said, I want it, and we demanded it. So we need to demand more. Now, you guys don't know this, but Brazil, the entire country of Brazil does not use fossil fuel to run their vehicles. The entire country of Brazil has some for those people who want it, but they run on sugar cane. They took sugar, which they grow there, and they created a gasoline, some sort of biofuel, out of sugar, and that's what they use. They're self-sufficient. You don't know this because the American government's not going to tell you this. You don't know this because the English government's not going to tell you this. You don't know this because no government in Europe is going to tell you this, because they want you on fossil fuels. Am I wrong, Daniel? Are you there, buddy?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I was there. So I just had to close my door.
Oh, all right, and I caught you at the very wrong time, didn't I? I apologize for that. So I was just telling them that about the fossil fuels in Brazil, and how the people in Brazil are running on sugarcane, but the governments aren't going to tell you that because they want you on fossil fuels, because they want the status quo. Am I right?
Yeah, it's true. They, the powers that were is what I call them, not the powers that be. The powers that were. Because like I says, it's the context thing again. You've got to put things in the proper context, of the way things are, and empower yourself while, simultaneously, disempowering those who are actually, trying to take control over everybody, there's no reason to use language that would empower them. So always use terms and words that would
weaken them. Absolutely. Good idea. Good idea, buddy.
It's the environmental space, the actual space, the creational space itself that's very important. Like I said, it's a battle of wills, willpower and presence, and make your willpower stronger, and theirs weaker as well at the same time, and if you become a very powerful, concentrated being within yourself. And one of the ways to do this is to not only get rid of all the negative aspects of yourself that no longer serve you, and all the things that are working in your life, make sure you keep doing, and all the things that aren't working within your life, get rid of and phase out, and replace them in that space with things that actually are working and that do serve you and stuff, And some things that serve other people may not serve you, and some things that served you in the past may not serve you now, but always, be present within each moment to yourself as closely as possible. Me, myself, I meditate every single day, and I have done for years, and I check in with my higher self every single hour as well. So, I've forged a very powerful, strong relationship with my higher self, and that's actually what spawned all of my work in the first place. That all comes from the higher self. My work came to me, and I received it night and day. It wasn't just within the day, it was any time, that it wanted to. I just woke up in the middle of the night, sometimes for 3 hours, and just had all of this information I just had to write down there and then, otherwise it wouldn't be able to be written down, I would have forgot it. So I did this for many, a long time, and, it comes down to the capacity for truth as well. It's like if you, one of the guys said a while ago, if you've got a golf ball size consciousness, you'll have a golf ball size awareness. But if you can expand your consciousness, to incorporate more, then it's going to expand, and consciousness never shrinks back to its original dimensions, once it's expanded anyway. So, once you've expanded your consciousness, it will, always be like that. And, I always say to people, the true fabric of reality, like we're speaking about all these powers that were, it has no beginning, middle or end anyway. Time and space is a never-ending, spiral into infinity. And, one of the other things you need to know is, life is not a straight line of success, and the human condition is, it's imperfect with perfection within, within the center of it, but that perfect part within inside yourself, the part of you that never left God, that's the part of you that you must tap, and cultivate every day and be brought forth into the world, because at the center, everybody is a pure energy being, so you need to get into true alignment and true relationship with this part of yourself. So, life is a battle after battle, and trial after trial and defeat after defeat. But it's about taking everything life throws at you and keep moving, forwards, keep moving onwards, keep moving upwards indefinitely without question, and each time you do that, you're a little closer to your true self. You're refining your being into that which you already are within the core of, yourself. And you will be manifesting your greatest, most powerful expression of love while you're within the world, through this journey of truth that you're going through, And, one of the other most important things I need to get across is that, you attract to things, negative and positive as well, while you're within the universe, because the universe itself is a mirror for projections of yourself, both good and bad. So like attracts like is the name of the game for everything. So don't allow your thoughts to be on anything that you don't want. You attract everything, including your fears, and what you feel and what you think, it magnetizes to you, over time. So it's up to you to be aware of yourself fully, each moment, present, moment to moment, and upon all levels as well, So.
Absolutely. John Gilbert said, and this was getting back to when we're talking about the powers that be, and he said, it was well said, he says, well said, Daniel, about the powers that be, last stand. How great is it for us to have the entire history at our fingertips, literally, and to conduct proper research and fight back against the evil empires. And that's exactly right, because of our technology. And we talked about this, I think, in our other show. You and I did, if not, it was on one of the other shows. How now, I think it was you and I, how now we were not able to use, we didn't have the internet a long time ago, so not too long ago. So we weren't able to reach as many people as we can reach now so quickly. And now we can use this technology that they're trying to use to control us. We're now able to use this technology because now we have literally in our fingertips, we can look up everything in the entire world that ever happened, all the history, and we can have this, like I have here, where we have this outlet to be able to deliver this message, your message, to the world, and to put it out there on the World Wide Web where they can't delete it because it's out there forever. And so, well said, John, and well said, Daniel. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm doing this, because it's adding permanence to my work. It can't be just, deleted. I can't have like tens of millions of views, like 150 million views just deleted and erased, anytime they feel like it, over the years. I can't just have like multiple accounts, like 50 YouTube channels over the years, that spaced an entire war over the last decade. They can't just delete them now because it's in book form, it's in the world, it's permanent, it's in libraries, it's in universities, it's on bookshelves. It's not going anywhere, so, they failed, and...
Yeah, I said the same thing about my books. No matter what happens in life now, like you said, that I have these shows that are on the air, and I have books, and they're in the Library of Congress, and they have a number, and they're in library books, and they're in bookstores, just like you said. So no matter what happens to me in life, there's still a part of me that's going to survive, that is a message that I'm delivering, that is a positive message, that is this message, and you're the same way. They can't erase you now. No matter how hard they try, you're in all corners of the world, and you won't be able to be erased. They can't erase you. They might be able to take and erase your YouTube page. They might maybe even be able to come and erase you personally by shooting you or strangling you or doing something and killing you. But you're still there. Your message is still out to the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many people out there now that are actually using all of my my books as well, in their lives and stuff. So, it's like many different people now who are actually taking on board, what's been said, and they know that they can use them as tools for their own advancement, and it will be one hell of an advancement as well, because not only is there like practical wisdom within there, but there's information that expands the perceptions as well of everybody in every area as well, So
yeah, and it's I remember that it wasn't too long ago when I got I was receiving a payment from Amazon because I put the book up on Kindle myself, so that it doesn't go through my publisher. It comes straight to me, and I was getting money that was coming in from overseas, and I had sold my first book in Japan. And I went, wow, somebody in Japan bought my book, and it's being sold in bookstores in London. And I went, who are these people? And somebody bought my book and put it in a bookstore in London. And I went, wow, my book's being sold in the UK. And, so for Daniel, I'm sure it was the same way when you get a, I don't know if you had that moment, but I did when I realized that I had sold a book in Japan. I was kind of giddy.
I do. I get it.
Isn't that something? You said, I sold a book in Norway and went, how did my book end up in Norway? I was like, all right, isn't that cool?
I know, it's really, really funny to me. It just makes me laugh, and I'm laughing about it now. I was laughing about it this morning because some of my books, they've wound up in India,
right.
In libraries and in universities. I'm like, how did they get there? It's like an network, but it's like really funny because like in the third book I did a hell of a lot of research. Like the other two, like they mostly came from my higher self and that relationship that I spawned. I created a nice vibrant field of wisdom within myself where these little, I say, like plants of wisdom just spawn themselves, and then I just pick them at certain times, or they just come to me and then I write them down. There's gifts for everybody. But, like my books have made it to India, they made it to, I've even sent one to Brian Forster. Nice. In as well, my first one, because I thought, what better way to have your wisdom preserved in all these places. And right. I'm always thinking about where can I preserve my wisdom in all these best places and stuff. And I know there's a guy as well who actually, every time I release a book, he actually buys 7 copies of it and actually distributes them all around the Brazilian jungle and stuff. So
wow. I actually interviewed him, and I was just talking to him to interview him, and he just sent me a reply back saying that he isn't going to be doing interviews for a while because he's working with some guys on a project, it's a book and I think a documentary about the pyramids, because his theory right now, he just wrote a book about it, was about the pyramids being a water pump. And I guess he's gotten together with several other scientists who are working on that. So that's funny that you bring him up, because I was just in contact with him the other day going, hey, when am I going to have you on the show? And he's like, oh, hey, you got to wait. You got to wait until we get done with what I'm working on, and then we'll bring it out to the people. So that's cool that he buys your book. I wish he would buy my book and distribute it to the people out there. Josie in the chat says exactly when we were talking about our technology. She says exactly, I'm walking around my garden while listening to you guys. Isn't this technology amazing? Great times we live in. Isn't that cool? She's walking around her garden and she's listening to us on the show.
Yeah, that's great, and I always say, as well, when it comes to creativity and stuff, there's always going to be a back door, to creativity, because that's a part of our very soul, so no sooner do they try to clamp down on one area and control one area, because we're humans and we're very intelligent anyway, when we're actually using that intelligence, then, a new area is going to spring forth that we can then present our creativity through, and we're all born of creative imagination, and there's no stopping, that part of ourselves, basically. So,
right, and that and it's just, I think we just need to get the knowledge out there more often to people, and you guys don't have to buy into it right away, because everybody's walking their own path to enlightenment, and some people maybe in this lifetime, you guys, that's not what you're here to learn in this lifetime, but it'll get into your head through osmosis. I said that last time, and so did Daniel. It'll get into your head through osmosis. If you're not ready because you're working on the mundane things of survival, or you're working on things that have, you might be having to worry about politics in this life or business, and spirituality is just not what your life is about. We're not trying to preach to you, and we're not trying to tell you, sell you and try to convince you. That's not what we're here to do. What we're here for is for those of you who are on that path of enlightenment at some level in your path, to show you that there's some of us out there that are trying to help you as well as ourselves. But like Daniel said, I can't help you. The old saying here in America is, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I can help you by being there, and Daniel being there, and for us to give you the knowledge that you're not alone, and that we're all fighting together, and that we're all in this together, and that there are some of us out there who are leading the way and there for you. That's all we can do. We're not teachers, we're guides. We're not trying to teach you anything that you don't already know or you won't already figure out. We're just trying to guide you. We're the guy that when you walk down the road, you go, which way am I supposed to go now? And we tell you, well, you can go any direction that you want to go from this point. This direction will have this happen, this direction will have that happen, and this direction I don't get to tell you, you don't get to know. So we're just here to guide and say, look, we're here, and hi, I'm where you're at now, welcome, and keep walking, and you'll find someone else further down the road who will be there as well. And that's the way it is. Some of us are walking together. Some of us are in, together because we're all at the same place, and we're all at different levels, and we're all going to get there. But we just want you guys to know there is an actual end game, and that all this stuff they're pouring into your heads in the world right now, you need to, it's like the book The Secret, I bring this up every time, you need to get the negative out of your mind, and that's what Daniel's talking about. If you read his books, his positive affirmation, I think it's your first book, Daniel, is all quotes, right? It's all inspirational quotes. Am I wrong in that?
All of them are.
All of them are, okay.
The entire book is it's like fractally compressed. It's like a multi-layered onion where you can read the same quotes, and they've got so much energy concentrated within them very few words. Every word itself within the book is very special, if you know what I mean. It can unlock your DNA. So it's not just like a book full of meaningless words. Like every single word is specifically phrased that specific way for a specific purpose, to trigger, your DNA, your ancient memory as well within inside yourself, because it all comes forth from, that higher source and that higher place. So it's going to have a massive, drastic effect on you just by reading it and just by, participating within it. And I always say as well, only the core foundations within inside yourself, should have any permanence. Everything else should be, in motion. Your beliefs, your ideas, your thoughts, your language, any religions that you do so choose for yourself, because the multiverse itself is emotion, is not only emotion, but motion as well.
Right.
So to evolve to as quickly as possible to the higher consciousness and awareness, things should never stagnate. So that's why I always come back to present as well, because everything should have presence. Everything should be in constant motion, ever changing, ever evolving, a reflection of you and your level of truth and awareness, at that specific time. So don't be held prisoner, by old dogma, or try to stay small to be able to fit in, with everything else. It's like, Greer, he was right about this part, about, the earth being within a transitional period, at the moment, because it actually is. And, one of the greatest things that people need to know, though, is that people, enslave themselves. And all one must do is to be fully present to themselves and to others, and to the reality in which they actually find themselves to be truly free within any moment. And it's never too late, Every moment is a new opportunity, and, every child born is a new hope as well. So.
Right, absolutely. And so you guys, you could literally, how those of you who are religious, and you've seen people do this, where they take the Bible and they just, they get a thought, say, or a question, saying, they just open the Bible and point out a passage and then read that maybe for inspiration for the day. You can literally do this with his books. You can literally put out there to the universe, maybe, what do I need to work on? Or put out to the universe, what would be a really good inspiration for me right now? And then just open up his book to a page and look down and read it. You can literally do that if you want to trust in the universe enough to give you that, and then look down and see what he wrote in that passage and see how that applies to you. You can literally do that with his book, or you can read it from cover to cover and page to page and sit there and ponder what those things mean. But see, the beauty of it is, as you evolve, and these are actually Daniel's words from before, as you evolve, you're going to find out that you can go back to the same book, his first book, and you can go turn page by page and read the same things and realize that you learned something new from what you learned the first time. And he encourages you to write down in a journal what it is that you learned from his passage, say, the first one, and put the date on there. Then come back a year later, or 6 months later, or 3 months months later and read that same passage and see if it still means the same thing to you. And you're going to find you're going to learn something different from what he wrote. So his book is not just a one-time off. And all these books are the same way. They're not just a one-time off. You're going to be able to come back and you're going to see and learn things now because your perspective is going to change. You are going to change. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, every time you read it, because you yourself are different, you're going to get something different from it. Because, like I said, it's practically infinitely, imbued with love and that energy, that pure energy. So every time you engage with it, you're going to get something different from it. It doesn't matter if a few seconds has passed, a few days, right, a few weeks, a few months. You're going to be, it's going to be continual learning for you, because these lessons as well, they're not just like lessons that, you just do one day and then, that's it. These are actual life, it's an actual life, an actual structure for an entirely new life, a greater life for yourself. So as soon as you implement a few of the actual teachings and things into your life, you're going to feel completely profoundly different.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I always say is the more present you are to yourself in each moment, the more you're going to feel the energy of others as well around you, and right, you're going to charm one another, and to do what makes you happy. Because it's the little things as well that make us and evolve us quickly. When we embrace everything fully as well. So
right,
there's many keys.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go on. Yeah. Well, I was just going to say there's many keys to creating and forging a powerful spirituality, and that all of them are covered within the Raising Eden Wisdom trilogy that I've put together, basically. So all you need to do is make sure you learn the core keys of awareness, that have been gifted. And you will be strong, powerful, and certain in yourself, from this moment forward.
See, and it's true. And here's an example of that. If you guys haven't seen the video, I have Stephen Greer's video, and it was last week now, almost a week ago now, where he did a Q&A after there was a webinar to show his movie that he just made. And afterwards, there was a Q&A that I had access to, and I posted it. It's either on Orion Rising, the group, or Orion Rising, the page. Go and take a look at it, because there was a point, and this is what we're talking about here. Now, he claims, Greer claims that our federal government has this, this shadow government, and that they also have a plan for a fake UFO invasion to make us believe that aliens have invaded, but it's actually our people. And they actually get people to dress up and look like aliens, so we think they're actual aliens, and that they're going, at some point, they're planning on rolling this out to where there's this alien invasion that comes here, and so we have to fight off this outside force so that way we can have one world government, and they can then take control and have one world government, and that they would be, at that point, in control of everything, and we would have the aliens that we're fighting against now, and they would start a war with some alien group out there for no reason, just like they start wars now here on this planet with no reason, and we're going to go fight against those people, and they're not even really our enemy. We're our own enemy. But he was trying to blow the whistle on that, and he says that they abduct people far more than aliens actually abduct people, and that it's actually our people pretending to be aliens to make you think that aliens are abducting you, so that you will, over time, everyone becomes afraid of aliens and hates aliens and wants to attack aliens. So they were trying to shut him up, and he tells about this. This is why I bring this up, and you'll see how it fits into what Daniel's saying. They were trying to shut him up from blowing the whistle on it, so they actually came to his hotel room and tried to abduct him. And he's sitting, and he describes this, and he's sitting in his hotel room, and this beam of light, first thing he said was it was silent in his room, and all of a sudden there was a click in the air, an audible click, as if somebody flipped a light switch, and you know how some of the light switches, when you turn on, they actually go clack. He heard that and looked around and realized that he was in trouble and that they were going to try something. So he saw this beam of light coming towards him. I think he said it was a pink or red beam of light coming towards him, and he knew that if they hit him with that light, they were going to try and abduct him, literally abduct him into this spaceship, and then either try and scare him or whatever. So he started meditating. And he said he started meditating, and he used his meditation and his sheer willpower and said, no, they are not going to be able to take me. I refuse to go. And he literally took his soul, his self, his body, and decided that I am going to become the ocean. One drop they can take, but they cannot abduct the entire ocean. And he spread his energy out to the entire world and said, I am the ocean. and we are one, and they can't take us all. And he said they tried 4 or 5 times to abduct him, and they could not do it. And then when it was over, he was sitting there, and he was, obviously shaken from this ordeal. And then he heard another clack. And then all of a sudden, he got physically ill. He physically had to crawl. He had a headache. He felt like he was going to vomit and thought he was going to poop himself. Had to crawl to the toilet, where, of course, he had, diarrhea and threw up and had this migraine headache. And again, he knew that it was them. They were now using some force on him to punish him for not allowing them to kidnap him. And he then had to meditate again. And this went on for about 15 minutes as he meditated. And then it literally stopped. And he was perfectly fine, and his headache was gone, and they left him alone. Watch that video. And that's what Daniel just said. Empower yourself to the point that you can combat them, and you are stronger than them, and they cannot defeat you. I know, again, that was a long story, but if you watch the video, it'll blow your mind. And Daniel just told you the same thing that Dr. Greer told you, and he told you in an analogy by telling you the story. And I did the same thing using an analogy telling you the story. So go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're absolutely right as well. We are far more powerful, than any of this darkness and evil, and that's the very reason why all this is done to us in the first place, because our power is, unlimited, and, every day as well, it all comes back to presence again, being present within yourself, because even Greer then, I've had the same kind of things that's happened to me in various things, the exact same kind of experience.
Right.
And I just know that the antidote is to center inside yourself and know that you have unlimited power. Know that you are the ocean. Know that you are powerful than any being that's trying to abduct you or take you anywhere. And also, you're more powerful than any weapon or any thing that can be fired at you as well.
Right.
So people worry about mind control within the world and all this kind of stuff and control grids going over humanity and stuff. They shouldn't be afraid because we are far more powerful than any directed beam weapon that can be fired at us. Anyway, consciousness is far more powerful. Your willpower can be far more powerful. So the only thing you need to do is be more present to yourself. That's the most important thing out of anything, and I know I've said it a few times, but that is the ultimate
thing. But you can't say it enough. You can't say it enough. I agree. Go ahead, buddy.
Exactly. So, every day you need to build capacity for your truth and the different things, through the process of being and doing every single day. Just practice and practice and practice and practice, keep practicing, and being with yourself, and make sure that you take time out for yourself, not only every single day, but try to, even set your mobile phone or something so that each hour you can, buzz in with yourself and make that connection, to your higher self. Just even for a few seconds, just take, a little bit of time out for yourself, but make sure you do it because, ultimately it all comes down to that self-love and creating a space in yourself. And, if you haven't got, time for yourself or space for yourself, how are you going to be able to, love anybody else or love the creation that you're in anyway? So you need to do that anyway. And if you don't feel like doing it, do it double that day,
Right, good idea.
So yeah, don't reinforce and help build the reality of others, who have no spiritual integrity, and it's all based on lies. Don't give them any time, don't give them any energy, don't give them any attention, and don't participate on any level. Build your own reality. Live your own reality. Plant the seeds of truth while staying true, to that singular truth inside yourself, and then the truth will grow and it will sprout forth. As an unstoppable, unshakable, unmovable force, basically, because the power of truth, has the ability to build a whole new world based on truth and love, for everybody, and it creates, you need to be that anchor, to bring that about,
Right, and it's just like I was talking about just the other day, and earlier today. It's like The Secret, the old that television show, and that book, and that audio tape. That from our birth, we are bombarded with negativity. Here in America, when you were born, the first thing they did was the doctor held you upside down and smacked you on your butt or smacked you on your back to get you to spit out the last of the embryonic fluid and start breathing oxygen. So that was violent. first thing that happened was violence to you. And now they don't do that. Now they go and suck the stuff out and kind of shake you and blow in your face a little bit, and you go, and then you start breathing and you cough up the other stuff. So they work with you now, and it's a more natural way. But forever, until probably about 20 years ago, that's the way it was here in the United States. I don't know about the rest of the world. And so things were violent, and then your parents constantly tell you, no, don't do that. No, get out of there. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. Then your teachers are no, and then everybody's no, 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 you can't do. You have to do this. You do what I tell you, not what I. No, you get negativity your whole life. So you have to get that negativity out of your mind, out of your brain. Some people ridicule themselves for doing something. Oh, I'm stupid. That's why you have to become aware of that, because that all is the conditioning that they have been. You have to remember, these people have been doing this for thousands of years. These people have been doing this. They're and like he said earlier in the show, if you missed it, where these guys are working with literally psychological warfare, military grade psychological warfare, putting it out on the internet on you and me and everybody else, on television, you, me, and everybody else. So we need to combat that. So the first thing you need to do is open that closet, open that locker, open your brain, and get all that negative junk that's in there out, and put positive things in its place. And once you start doing that, it's like a snowball. And this is what I was saying like yesterday. You start out and you got your snowball and you're making it, and it's about this big, and then you're making it bigger. And then you're making it bigger, and pretty soon it's on the ground. You start pushing it. And as you're pushing it, you're going uphill now. And it's getting bigger, but now it's getting heavier, and it's harder, and you're pushing. Oh no, I'm going uphill, and I don't know if I can make it. This is why I was saying, like Daniel and I and guys like me, we're here to help you push that. We're here to help you push that up over the top. And once it gets to the top of the hill, all of a sudden, what happens? It just runs downhill all by itself, and you have to chase after it, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what's going to happen if you have the negative influence. Commercials are negative. The news is negative. Television in general is negative. The internet's negative. Look at all the trolls and the keyboard warriors and the horrible things that happen. You turn on the news, and they have one good story, and the 60 minutes of death, gore, violence, killing, horrifying things, right? Think about that. It's true. All the channels in America, I don't know how it is in the UK, all the channels in America talk about 7 subjects and then 1 or 2 local things. Otherwise, you're going to hear all the same rhetoric on every channel about the same thing. They've all gotten together and made promises to do that. Sounds like a conspiracy theory, people. Change the channel while you're watching the news. Watch one channel, go to another, go to another, go to another. They're all going to talk about the same thing, except for the local stuff where they're going to talk about local sports, local weather. Otherwise, you're going to hear the same national news. Everything's going to be all the same. And that's what's going to happen. Regional, too. If you're in a certain area, like I'm in Sacramento, and we got different channels here, you're going to find out that they're all going to talk about the same regional stories that are here in this area within a 50-mile radius of me. So they're conditioning you at every turn with negativity. So you need to get your barriers up against that negativity and push it all out of you and keep it away from you, and then put positive in there, and then you stay positive toward yourself. Like Daniel said earlier, you have to love yourself. So the only way you can do that is you have to be present in the moment, grounded in yourself. And if you can do that and be in yourself, in the present, and grounded, that's important. Grounded. If you don't know what that is, look that up, okay? Look that up, or find someone that you know that understands what that means. Because once you become grounded and you feel what it feels like to be grounded, you'll never forget it. You'll never forget it. You'll want to be grounded with this earth and with this universe, and you feel so much better. Because you're there and it's positive and you're in the moment, and you can actually feel this planet and feel you, me, and everybody else around us, and you can feel the universe. You may not be ready to get there yet, but once you are, you're going to look back at me and go, wow, Daniel was right and Leo was right. So that you get the negative out. This is what Daniel's telling you. Get the negative out and get the positive in, and then you'll be a more positive person towards yourself. You'll start to love yourself. You'll feel better in your skin. You'll feel better in your soul, and then you'll be more positive. And you'll realize that all of our energy that we project on ourselves and on everyone else around us affects everything and everyone. Am I right, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, anybody can fall and be claimed by their ego consciousness, no matter how powerful they are. So you've got to create powerful relationships to prevent this fall as well, relationships inside yourself, with your higher self, for example, relationships with others, relationships to places, and even, things within the world itself and things, So ultimately, we can't do anything alone. So friends and allies are very important to have. Friends and allies, they aid us, they guide us, they counsel us during our, the journey, to the singular truth inside ourselves. you know, and they help keep us anchored on that, you know, the golden path. So any missteps that we actually do create for ourselves, you know, unintentionally, you know, they're always lessened, you know, any mistakes that we make. So it's like you were saying as well, you know, don't plant negative seeds that foment an environment of fear, chaos and confusion, you know, or plant positive seeds of awakening that sprout forth wisdom, peace and love. And, you know, the first rule of love is to love yourself, obviously. You know, the first rule of peace is to find it within yourself. The first rule of kindness is to find it within yourself as well. Just like the first rule of happiness is to find it in yourself. You know, it's not going to come from some outer source, you know, you've got to find it in yourself. So you have everything you need within already. So don't be a tyrant, you know, with yourself.
Right. And Josie said in the chat, she said, just think about the culture of gory and torture and violence, and the teens crave this in all the movies. They keep them there into this to keep them disturbed and distracted, and that's true. The television does the same thing. You know, the violence. My generation, I'm going to be 50 in September, and here in America we're called the X generation. You know, Gen Xers, Generation X, because in my generation, when I was a teenager, the television programs were the most violent television programs in the history of the world on television. We had crazy things. One of the things that sticks into my mind was Miami Vice, and Tubbs and Crockett, the two cops in the show of Miami Vice, killed more people in one episode of Miami Vice than were killed in 10 years in the entire state of Miami by the police department.
Yeah, you should. I was going to say you should watch John Wick 2 as well. That movie.
John Wick 2, I haven't seen yet, and I want to see that because I mean, right? No, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the entire movie is just one big kill session. Basically, it's just non-stop killing. Like,
I mean, one was pretty bad, but I guess two is even worse, right? But yeah, it's horrible. It's just the one was the same way. That they had the beginning a few minutes that wasn't probably, but the second one is just you know, that's like the movie Shoot 'Em Up, wasn't it? Shoot 'Em Up there in England with Clive Owen. Was that called Shoot 'Em Up? That was the same way. It was a shooter movie, and they just killed people from the beginning to the end. It was just insane. I mean, if you love that stuff, it was great, but it was just killing. And you know, and Josie's right, and I want to refer to myself, unfortunately, back when I was a teenager. The things that we did that you guys don't know about, we grew up during the time of Halloween, the movies, and Friday the 13th, the movies, and Hellraiser, the movies. And this is a true story. I was actually there. We did this. I worked at a movie theater. Shout outs to everybody that worked at the Dome. Anybody who knows me from Concord Pleasant Hill, shout outs to the Dome. Shout outs to Sayufi Enterprises. Don't know if they're still around, but the Dome was there. The theater was there. And we used to hang out there trying to get a bunch of those guys back together for a reunion. Anyway, I'm friends with most of them on Facebook, so if they're watching this, kudos to you guys. And you'll remember this because we did it. We worked at the movie theater. We went to a drive-in theater, which was one of our sister theaters, and we were there to watch one of the it was one of the Friday the 13th movies. And what we did was we went and got the billboard numbers that we put up on the big marquee because they were all there, and we would slide them in for the different movies that were playing and slide them out. And we took the numbers with us, and we went to the drive-in theater, and we all sat on the hoods of our cars and in the back of trucks, and we all listened and watched the movie, and we all had the fake knife that Jason had, and we had the mask on, and every time Jason killed somebody, we held up the numbers and ran around cheering how many people he killed. 2, yeah, 10, and we're running around cheering that he had killed 10 people. And see, that's the kind of craziness that us Generation X people were caught up in. And it took us until we were in our adult life, into our 20s, before we realized that they were programming that into our brains. You guys don't know this because people like Daniel and I, since then, have convinced most of these people to change the programming and downplay the violence. The cartoons that used to be on the air here in the United States was the Warner Brothers cartoons. I'm sure, Daniel, you got to see some of the Warner Brothers cartoons. They're the most violent cartoons ever made. Those are no longer aired in the United States because they were too violent. Then they started making other other Warner cartoons that were less violent than those, but that's what we went through. So you guys are still getting some of the residual in other ways where they're keeping it trained on you, but it's not as bad as my generation, and it's getting less, luckily, because there's more of us, like Daniel said. There's more of us every day that are becoming enlightened, and we're waking up and we're changing things for the better. You guys just don't know it because you don't know how bad it was. Am I right, Daniel?
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, I always say, to live is to be present, because stagnation is death. So a person should always be pumping new energy and presence into life, so it doesn't stagnate, and so the fractal holograph, of reality doesn't, constrict through time, because eventually, if you're not pouring new energy into something and presence, it will collapse and just get worse and worse. And, you can see that through the decades as well. Like, you can see, after the war, everybody didn't want war anymore. They were concentrating, obviously, on, like the baby boomers and stuff, concentrating on families, and they were so sick of war they didn't want war anymore. Right. So it's all to do with human perception and focus and where it goes to how the world's actually going to reflect, and to how it's actually going to be and stuff. And most people today, they want to do anything to try to disengage and escape reality, because presence comes with responsibility. That's why I'm always saying, be present always and stuff, because the more present you are to yourself, the more present you are to your life. Everything's about presence. So if you're going to be present to yourself internally and present to your own life externally, it opens up the keys to being able to create any reality, you do so choose at any time as well. And that's ultimately as well what the the Matrix movie thing was about as well, with Keanu Reeves in, about he was, because he was an ocean within the drop, the actual ocean itself could come to his aid at any time. Right. Because he was such concentrated, powerful being inside himself, because ultimately everybody is a fragment of the creator, so we can contain the whole information of the whole. And that's what a holograph is as well, because this universe now is a holographic projection of light. Right. Within it's moving. So if you centered in yourself, there's no reason why you can't alter reality to different things. Right. And emotion itself, there's many different dimensions that are simultaneously omnipresent alongside our existence here and stuff. And emotion itself, that's the actual thing that collapses the wave function of reality itself. So if you learn how to take control of your emotion, not control it, in a sense, but more direct it so it's not directing you. Right. Then you'll have total control over, where it's going and where you're putting it and where you're putting that focus. So focus is very important alongside presence.
Yes.
That's two things.
And intention. Intention, your intent. Right?
That's all intention and attention.
Yeah, and attention. Absolutely, good one. And attention, yes.
Exactly, and the intention goes into creating reality anyway, because from the onset of creating a seed, see everything as a seed that spirals out fractally through time like a tree or whatever. You want that primal seed of your intent. You want it to be good, you want it to be uncorrupted, so your original intent is very, very important in any creation that you're going to create for yourself as well. Right. And one of the other things I wanted to just talk about as well, briefly cover, is the four foundational spheres of life, which I talked about last time, which was the four foundational spheres, which were your life, your health, and your work, your relationships, and your spirituality. And you don't want to stimulate or overindulge on any one of the cost of the others, or you're going to become weakened and blind. The true power lies in your ability basically to to be able to balance all your four foundational spheres of life, because everything comes down to them four spheres, which is health, work, relationships, and spirituality. And if you have a handle on them, then you've already won half the journey. And then there's also the four foundational domains of existence as well, which are the physical domain, the mental domain, the emotional domain, and the spiritual domains as well. And these domains, like I was saying a few minutes ago, they all represent parallel and omnipresent living dimensions and realities, and they're just as real as the world in which we live today. But you need to be able to master those four domains of existence, as well as the four spheres of life as well. you know.
Right, right. Now, Josie, referring back to what we were talking about, said, and most of the kids' shows nowadays, you get, and I think this is important to bring up, that's why I'm going backwards here, you get Alien and Alien Invasion. Do you think it's a soft disclosure? Now, let me answer, and then I'll let you answer. My opinion on that is twofold. Yes and no. Yes, I think that, because I've thought that about a lot of things where they put aliens into the cartoons and the shows for the kids, because the people who are actually making the show are trying to integrate the idea of aliens to the children, so it makes it easier for them to accept. But I would say no if it's an alien invasion, because then that's the behind the scenes controllers trying to make our children afraid of an alien invasion and program them that aliens are bad. So that's my opinion. So Daniel, how do you want to address that? What Josie has said?
Yeah, it's all to do with the presence and the focus thing again. You know, it's all coming back to you know, they're trying to condition people, you know, ahead of time on their agenda of where they want to swing things. You know, and you know, if you're not building your own reality, if you're not building your own dreams, you know, then somebody else is doing it for you, and that's basically what they're doing. And they're called programs because, you know, you know, it's a set reality, like in a little box that they present to people, and they you know, it's a program for them. It's a program. They're programming basically to you know, for their own agenda, you know, to lead people that way. So ultimately, though, you know, that's just half the you know, thing that's going on. You know, ultimately, half the battle is, you know, you yourself, you need to make sure that, because there's so much movies and so much music and stuff coming out today, you know, you need to really be conscious of what you're actually taking into your different you know, your different domains of you know your existence, you know, because like I said, it's not just a physical domain where you're actually watching something. You've got to be aware of the mental environment, you've got to be aware of your emotional environment. For example, I watched a film called Zodiac, which was about like a serial killer and stuff, and
the Zodiac killer happened. I just want to cut in real quick. The Zodiac killer happened where I lived, where I grew up. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and he was killing people around Concord, Berkeley, Antioch, and I grew up there, and all my friends grew up there. So I just wanted to, while that was happening, I was there, and we were terrified. Anyway, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say as well, you know, I mean, I can't believe that you was actually there.
I was, yeah. We actually know of this different sites where people, I've actually been to the different sites where people kill. Mount Diablo was what the Zodiac Killer based his 0 point, and then he would go out in different mathematical equations to different points, and that's where he would go to kill. And Mount Diablo, I actually have it tattooed on my arm, Mount Diablo. I lived at the base of Mount Diablo, literally. Mount Diablo was the foothills that you just started to drive up in the mountain was literally 4.5 miles from my house, and then we drove up to Mount Diablo. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's crazy. Well, I was just saying that, you know, even me, you know, you've you know, you really got to be aware of what you're actually putting into the different dimensions of your being, because like I said, there's 4 you know, foundational domains of existence that you actually, you know, we're multi-dimensional beings, you know, there's many dimensions, you know, that are going on at the same time, and you need to be aware of all of them. You know, I've put them all within the book. You know, I've called it the 4 domains of existence, for example, and then, you know, your actual life within the world, you know, I call it the 4 foundational spheres of life as well, which is why I said earlier. But you know, like the Zodiac Killer, that movie, you know, I woke up in the middle of the night, and obviously because my subconscious was disturbed by, you know, 1 or 2 of the images, you know, I was like, why did I just randomly wake up at this time of night for no reason? Right. And then I was, because I know that, you know, there's no such thing as a random thought, there's no such thing as just waking up for no reason or whatever. You know? Right, absolutely. Or whatever, but yeah, I just woke up, and then I realised that it was because I watched that movie quite late at night, and my subconscious, you know, it couldn't compute it or something, you know, it's just too much. So
we're still working on part of it, yeah.
Yeah, like at a deeper level. So it kind of woke me up. But I was like, you know, it's the same with everything. It has like a cumulative, you know, eroding effect on people's being. The more darkness, because evil itself likes to be studied. Yep. So you need to make sure that you have an equal and opposite light that you actually, and positivity that you look into if you are to study such things, because, you know, like I says, it's all to do with willpower, and it's all to do with how much focus you put on specific things. Yep. Like, you can't just study evil if you're not study in good, and you're not anchored firmly within good itself as well, and actually spend a lot of time within that the most, because you won't be able to handle it. You will actually, it will actually flip it over and invert you and turn you into the very evil you're actually studying if you was to just look into the darkness, if you know what I mean.
Very good Jedi analogy there. Very good Jedi. Once you start down the dark path, forever will it consume your destiny. Very good.
Focus is upon it.
Yeah, very good. No, but he's right though, people, and because it's the truth. When you start studying darkness, if you're trying to look into it and evil and all that stuff, he's right. Because all of that becomes around you, and they see you, and the evil energy finds you because you're looking at them, and they're gaining power from you. And if you're afraid, they even get more power from you. So if you're scared while you're learning it, I don't know about this stuff, they're going to jump on you. The whole energy around you is going to change, and you'll be at a precipice, and you'll go over the edge. Because your own fear drives you over the edge. Your own non-belief in yourself will drive you over the edge. So if you're going to, you have to balance that. There has to be a balance between both light and darkness in your life. And I live my life that way. And I think that's it's not really the Jedi way, but I think it's becoming the Jedi way, where you just trust in the Force. I just trust in the universe. So in a sense, I'm trusting in the Force, because there really is a force in the universe that is just like the force in that movie, and that's why there are people now who are striving to become Jedi, because there is that force in the universe. And if you balance that and just allow yourself to be in the universe, because there are not evil trees, there are not evil dogs, nothing in the universe is evil, but man makes it so. But the human race makes it so. So that we have the ability and to manifest that energy and other beings in the universe, but you have to be a sentient being to do that. Grass blades are not evil. You don't have an evil grass blade and a good grass blade. They're just grass blades. Do you see? So you and I and everyone else have that choice to manifest that. So the only way that you can learn about that is, like Daniel said, you have to learn about the good as well, and keep enough good to balance out and to get that ickiness off of you that gets stuck to you when you read and learn and look at that evil. You have to get it. You have to get that off of you, because it stays on you. You have to cleanse yourself. So you have to go back to the light side and cleanse yourself of that yucky. You get it off, get it away, and then you can go back with a fresh knowledge of what you've just learned, but also more confidence, because you would have gained. Am I right, Daniel, on that? You would have gained confidence because now you're doing that and you're going and learning on both sides, right?
Yeah, that's right. And not only is presence important, and and your focus, and balance is very, very important as well, like we were saying. But it's like, never take actions within your life, or do things in life that jeopardizes your whole internal and external stability, or your security in life, or that of others.
Right.
So never just look into the darkness and think that you can deal with it, because the most powerful beings anywhere, after a while, if they're not within balance within themselves, they will start turning into that very darkness that they're doing. And disunion within people is a grim companion. And a lot of people and beings within our world now carry that, because of all the movies and all the things, and basically the environment that's been fomented within movies and the social media even, and other things, but it's like disunion within people, that's like the circle that binds humanity in circles. And it's the epitome of strength to know how to help oneself in misfortune. So to be able to be present to yourself and unify your being, is to alleviate this, and if you have the power to alleviate your own suffering, and the unity of self that I'm always talking about, which is to be present to yourself fully, and put in the time, every single day, even upon every single hour, check in with yourself. If you have that level of unity of being, because you actually, it's not just like fairy tale fantasy, BS. It's actual a practice, a spiritual practice that you can do every day to become very powerful, and there's not going to be a being, walking the earth who's as powerful or has as strong willpower as what you have,
Right.
or to be capable of what you can do, because it's not you actually doing it, it's your higher self. You're just the vessel basically for your higher true power to flow through
Right.
into the and if you have unity of self, that's the resolution to all suffering anyway, not only within yourself, but you'll be able to create that within the world as well, and for others. And that's one of the most important lessons really, is to be a force for good within the world, and then when and where you can, try to alleviate the suffering for everybody else as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And if you're a Christian, look at your New Testament. Jesus even said in there that if you had enough faith, you could move mountains. And he didn't mean that figuratively. He meant that literally, and figuratively, really. But you could move mountains. You're strong enough if you have enough faith, and all you have to do is believe in yourself and be present and in yourself and grounded with the universe and confident and knowing that you and everyone else around you for a positive gain have enough strength that we can do what we need to get done, and we can get it done. And you as a personal individual being will find that you have more power, more strength in your personal life. And people who maybe before pushed you around, you won't allow that to happen. You'll go, you know what? Stop that. I don't agree with that. I don't like it. Quit treating me like that. And you'll find that you'll all of a sudden become happier with yourself, and you'll find other things that you like to do that you didn't realize that were positive things that you like to do. Only because before you were bombarded with so much negativity that you're sitting there depressed, going, "My God, the world's coming to an end, and I'm in it, and what's going to happen?" But it's not true. They just want you to believe that, because none of it's true, none of it's real. Am I right, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, with the power of love, the force from above, or, should we say the force birthing within the core of your true pure being within, you can always go longer than you think, travel further than you've ever achieved, right. Create anything you can imagine, and yet, you can meet any challenge, and with that love, anything's attainable. Any community, is sustainable. Love conquers all, and it brings clarity to all things. It makes everything clear. It brings unity, so it allows no blocks within your human form. So that all that energy from your higher self and that central pure cure, just flows, and it's clear, cuts through everything like a blade. Nothing can withstand the ultimate power. That is the vibrant, living, present love is what I call it. Present love. And like the sun shines on the righteous. It's not just the external sun, but it's also the inner sun. Internally projecting its powerful sunbeams. Filling your life. With presence, and it just blesses all life and creatures and the creation alike. So.
Right, absolutely. All right, well, we're running on now, so we're running over 2 hours. So I think we'll have to call it for today, and I'll have to have you back on again because we just hardly ever touch on everything. We skim the surface of the iceberg, and there's so much more below the waterline that we never get to. I'll have to schedule you. So again, do you have a website? If you do, let people know. Otherwise, tell them where we can find your book. Tell them if you have Facebook pages, what they are. Your YouTube page. Give them all that information. Okay.
Yeah. It's just basically the best thing to do is just go to my YouTube channel, which is DanielofDoriaa, which is all one word and then 2 A's, on Doria, DanielofDoriaa, because they deleted my first one obviously, so I had to start again. And then my 3 books, like I said, the third one just only came out the other day, like 2 weeks ago, like when we did the other radio show, I hadn't actually done it, did I? I said I was going to have one coming out soon and stuff, but I've actually to complete the trilogy. It's called the Raising Eden Wisdom trilogy, and the first one's called Raising Eden Wisdom of the Eternal. The second one is called Raising Eden Volume 2 Wisdom of the Singular Truth. And then the third one, that's just only come out, it's called Raising Eden Volume 3, Wisdom of the Ascendant. And all of them are available on Amazon in paperback.
Nice. Nice. Can they get it on ebook yet or Kindle yet?
No, because all of my work always constantly got deleted at the moment in ebook form. I wanted to make sure that my book was out in paperback first.
Before you messed with that, all right then. So we'll have to follow that and keep an eye on you. And once you get that up there, we'll have to let people know. So Daniel, thank you again for coming on. Stand by, because what I'm gonna do, guys, I'm gonna play the song out and run his photos again. It has a lot of his quotes on there and his books and stuff like that. So you guys can see those if you missed them in the beginning. And you guys go to my page, right? Orion Rising Worldwide, Ancient Aliens Worldwide groups on Facebook. I also have the pages for both of those, Orion Rising and Ancient Aliens Worldwide. The pages, go to those pages, follow those pages, like those pages. Also, my YouTube page, I have a couple of them. One is that I'm using for the archive right now is my name, Leonard O'Neill. There's two of them under that name. One only has like 3 videos. The other one has like 25, 26, 27. That's growing. That's the one. Like that, subscribe to it, pass it on to your friends. I'm also going to start archiving on Orion Rising TV. That's if you go to YouTube and do a search for that. Right now there's no videos on there, but there will be, because as I expand and I get more stuff going here, that's where we're going to archive. Right now, also on the pages, Orion Rising, the page, and Ancient Aliens Worldwide, the page, not the groups, I archive the videos of the shows that I'm doing, so you guys can watch them there as well. So go take a look at that stuff. Like I said, like those pages, subscribe to those pages, like Daniel's page, subscribe to it, like his YouTube channel, subscribe to it, like my YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Go and get my book, Orion Rising. That's the first book of a trilogy. It is the Orion Rising trilogy. The other books haven't come out yet. I'm going to have another book coming out probably in 2018 because I had to get this show going in 2017. So probably probably about this time next year, I'll have Orion Rising, the second book coming out, and the third will come out a year or 2 after that. So you can get my book online anywhere, just about anywhere. You can get it on all of the ebooks. You can get it on even the G book. You can get it on Kindle. It's sold on eBay, on Amazon, bookstores, not BarnesandNoble.com. The big bookstores here in America haven't picked it up yet, but most of the bookstores over in the rest of the world have. They have them in smaller bookstores, not the big ones. The big boxes haven't picked me up yet, but they will eventually. So take a look at that, guys. Tune in. Take a look at my calendar. I will be posting that. I put them on the events. So if you're in my groups or you're in my pages, you'll see them there. I have Bruce Cunningham going to be on here tomorrow. And then I have Rachel going to be on Monday. Rachel Gibson is another sidekick. I'm going to have her on. And the only other person that I have scheduled right this second, only because there's like 6 of you I haven't gotten back to yet, and I'll be getting back to you today, or actually 8. There's 8 of you. I'll be getting you guys on the schedule. Otherwise, I have Julia coming up on Friday, the 7th of July, and she is paranormal, I believe. But my calendar's filling up really quickly. I just haven't gotten back to some of you because I've been busy with the shows. Did 2 shows yesterday, 1 show today, and 1 show every day last week except for Thursday. So now that I'm running everything on my own, there's a lot of work. So I am still trying to keep the shows going as many as I can, but I may back off a little bit just so that I can get a bunch of schedules scheduled. So Daniel, again, thank you very much for being here. Hang on, don't go away when we do the thing. Let me get off air, and then you and I can talk for a few minutes before we get going here. So hang tight. Let me play this out, guys. Great show. Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm gonna switch over here to the slideshow, and then I'm gonna go ahead and play the song that I had that goes along with the slideshow here. When the song is over, I'll end the broadcast. All right. So thanks, guys. Great show, Daniel. Thank you again.
Cheers.